what is the journey for them? What does the journey for them look like? If somebody wants to learn to be a witch, or let's say if somebody wants to learn magic, earth magic,
Why are people even curious at all? Why are people even willing to have a conversation on it? The local medicine woman or the local shaman, you come to the city and you're a Reiki practitioner. It's the same with tarot.
Can anyone become a witch?
Absolutely.
Who is a witch? So, is it true what we consider magic today can become science tomorrow, as and when we start to uncover how it's happening? How bringing in those vibrations and affecting your vibratory levels, your electromagnetic field, it almost feels like you're mixing spirituality and science and, let's call it, those magical elements.
And people think of it negatively because the first connotation is black magic. Everyone wants to think about black magic.
There are people who want to know what this really is, what magic really is, and why do people see it in such a negative light?
Employed magic in any form to bring anyone else down, to stagnate anyone else, to slow down someone else's process, or to break up someone's home. Create and recreate and replenish energy shields around myself, around my workspace, around my home, around my family members. It's a difficult element to work with because it constantly reminds us how much we are a work in progress.
Senses, that's the first I'm hearing of this.
Okay.
So can you tell me a little more about that? Welcome to another episode of our podcast of Ezyme Kaleidoscope. Today we have with us a guest. Her name is Sumiran Kashyap, and she is into divination and healing and flower essences. So she does tarot, Reiki, a lot of other healing modalities, Bach flower remedies, and Yogananda flower essences. But I think that's just the surface, and there's so much more to her. Every time I've spoken to her, I find another glimpse into the world of spirituality, merged with science and a little bit of sprinkles of magic. So I think that's what we're going to talk about today, and let's find out more from her. So welcome, Sumiran.
Thank you, Meetu. Thank you to everyone who's listening. I'm very excited to be here today.
Lovely. It's lovely to have you. So Sumiran, let's talk about Yogananda essences. That's the first I'm hearing of this.
Okay.
So can you tell me a little more about that?
Yogananda flower essences are herbal infusions. The primary ingredients are sunlight, spring water, and the prana of the flower.
Okay.
The reason these infusions use the flower is because the flower represents the reproductive system of the plant, and that is where life force or prana is the strongest. So these infusions have been formulated to help stimulate positive spiritual qualities within us so that we can become better and better versions of ourselves and come back home to ourselves in terms of emotional tenacity and dignity.
Lovely. That sounds interesting. So I have heard about Bach flower remedies, which again are something similar. They're made from flowers that were mostly available around the area where Edward Bach used to live.
Right.
So they are used to address emotions. So
Yes.
Are Yogananda essences also something similar to that?
Yes. The flowers are of fruits, vegetables, and nuts that Yogananda ji intuited to have a certain higher vibrational order and certain spiritual qualities associated with each one of them. So they do work primarily at the emotional and mental sphere, very similarly as to the Bach flower remedies.
Lovely.
They are trees in the same garden, but not necessarily fruits on the same tree.
Wow, that's interesting. Can you tell us a little more about earth element and perhaps even earth magic?
I have worked with earth as an element in terms of crystals and herbs and flowers. So the flower essences for me are a manifestation of working with the element of earth and anything that grows out of it. And then the crystals, of course, because they are the fruits of the earth, just like fruits, vegetables, and other things that grow. It's a difficult element to work with because it constantly reminds us how much we are a work in progress. Grounding is not as easy to do. We live in a very hyper-stimulated world. We're constantly in a state of hypervigilance. Very often, more often than we care to admit, we are running before we walk, And that is why when we stick our toes into the earth, or we are working with our hands and we are gardening, or even looking after just a single pot of a flower or a fruit or a vegetable, it's a very humbling experience.
Yeah.
Because it constantly reminds us that we need to stand firm on our feet no matter what we're going through, and that if our efforts and our intentions are aligned and they're coming from a good space of wanting to elevate ourselves but without hurting other people, we will always land on our feet no matter how difficult the difficulty. So earth magic for me is primarily in terms of working with crystals and with herbalism. There is an element of protection magic. I think that has been a space that I'm very comfortable in. And that basically entails using crystals, certain herbs, and certain spices. Again, both produce of the earth, to create and recreate and replenish energy shields around myself, around my workspace, around my home, around my family members, and to share it, to keep expanding the scope of that shield to include more and more people. It's always, and when I say protection, I mean just protection. I have never employed magic in any form to bring anyone else down, to stagnate anyone else, to slow down someone else's process, or to break up someone's home. I think that magic is like nature. It is quietly powerful and it is simple. It follows the path of least resistance, which means it conserves energy, right? And it works best when it is used for the higher good of the self and others. I think that when you use earth magic or any other elemental magic to the detriment of others, we don't talk about the price that has to be paid for that sort of an energy exchange.
Yeah.
It's spiritual hubris, it's intellectual arrogance to think that the earth element or any other element could be manipulated.
True.
To change the course of the original matrix, as I call it, which is basically the cosmic web.
Yeah, that's interesting. And the way you're talking about magic, a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about it. And, as we were talking about in our initial conversation about magic, we talked about, how sometimes people confuse magic with the C and the magic with the K. And when you're talking about earth magic, it's not just about using it to do harm. It's actually using it to grow and evolve. So can you talk a little more about that? Because I think there are people who want to know what this really is, what magic really is, and why do people see it in such a negative light?
Okay. At the outset, I'd like to differentiate between magic with the C and magic with the K. Magic with the C is what I call performance magic, the work of the magician that you see on stage, the theatrics of it. And when I say theatrics of it, I don't mean it in a derogatory word. I mean it in terms of a theater presentation. Magic with the K for me is about aligning with the frequencies of natural elements. There was a time when I used to also call it manipulation. And then I realized, like I said, it is intellectual pride. It is a type of spiritual hubris. It's overconfidence and complacency to call it manipulation. What we are really striving to do while we remain in this physical body is to keep elevating ourselves to a frequency of something in nature where we align with the potency of that element at that frequency with our own, and we bring into manifestation a desired outcome. So this has been portrayed in a very misconstrued light because it's just easier to do when you want to enchant an audience or frighten an audience in a movie or in a TV show, right? I'm not saying that those presentations are highly inaccurate. I'm just saying that maybe they're embellished. And it's a very literal translation of what this alignment with the frequencies of nature are meant to be. And people think of it negatively because the first connotation is black magic. Everyone wants to think about black magic. There is no such thing as black magic, white magic. It is the intention of the practitioner that makes magic so. Magic for me is energy. It is what the different cultures and languages and mythologies of the world will call chi or prana or whatever else. So it does not require us to exist per se, but it certainly works through us as a medium. Therefore, trying to color it as black or white magic is again trying to control something that is much larger than what we are, right? So if I ever say that I'm interested in magic, I have practiced magic, I do protection magic at home, what I would like people to understand that as is not me sitting at 12 o'clock at night in robes with pictures of people or all sorts of outlandish symbols and chanting things that are supposed to elevate me, but by cutting the knees or the heads off of other people because I want to get ahead in life. No. I'll give you an example since you mentioned earth magic. If the simplest protection magic that anyone can do is a salt circle. You can use your table salt, you can use your Himalayan pink salt, you can research any other kind of salt and use it. So if I make a protection circle with salt, right, and I sit in it, and I burn a little bit of turmeric as incense, and I teach myself to sit while that turmeric is smoking in the room, to meditate while that is happening. What is the purpose of this? This is cleansing and protection together. The salt and the turmeric are doing their respective work of cleansing and protection. But why have I come up with this ritual of burning it like incense and sitting inside the salt circle? I understand the stimulating qualities of turmeric, the anti-inflammatory qualities of turmeric, the positive work that turmeric does on the stomach, right? We all know this. We might agree with this. The stomach is where you have, the seat of instinct, the seat of creativity, the seat of personal power. That entire region between stomach and abdomen. So we're looking at the sacral and solar plexus chakra, right? So if I, as a practitioner of divination, of the alternative arts, wants to stimulate, replenish, revive the seat of my gut instinct, I will come up with a ritual of that nature. For me, that is earth magic. And what is the magic part of this? I am trying to elevate my frequency to the frequency of pure salt and pure turmeric and sort of match up with their vibrational qualities and make it part of my vibration, my aura, or my electromagnetic field, if that's how you want to call it scientifically. That's all it is.
That's interesting the way you mentioned, matching up to the vibration of pure salt or pure turmeric.
Right.
It almost feels like an energy exchange that you're doing.
Yeah.
When you are sitting in a salt circle and burning turmeric as essence. At the same time, you're also talking about how bringing in those vibrations and affecting your vibratory levels, your electromagnetic field, it almost feels like you're mixing spirituality and science and, let's call it, those magical elements. So, how do the three interconnect?
Mitu, for me, science, energy, magic, spirituality, they are all interconnected. They all have the same root. I may be oversimplifying it when I say that, but what I'm really trying to do is keep the floor open and invite people to consider the possibility of these realms being intertwined and aligned with each other harmoniously. If science is the study of natural phenomena and theorizing what is being observed in the natural phenomena and then testing it by experimentation, magic technically does the same thing. spiritually gifted people might observe something, they might record it, they might try to replicate it in a different environment, they might try to get the same result in under different conditions, and so on. They are doing their own sort of scientific curiosity. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, if it is about the observation of natural phenomena, magic is doing the same thing. This clear distinction between science, spirituality, magic, for me is simply a reflection of the evolution and the sophisticated nature of human consciousness. There was a time when we only knew magic, that the world only knew magic. The world only belonged to the magicians, right? As consciousness has evolved, we have understood the scientific method, we have understood scientific curiosity. Scientific discoveries have evolved in their sophistication, We've gone from the discovery of magnets and electricity and the laws of gravity, the laws of thermodynamics, to the telephone, from the landline to airdrop. We've gone from the landline to airdrop.
Yeah.
Right? Some people will say that, of course, this is, like I said, the sophistication of scientific innovation. It is also the sophistication of the development of human consciousness. So for me, increasingly, it's getting hard to blur the boundaries between the two, between science and spirituality. And I do believe that the way forward is to find ways to align it. You enter a hospital. I feel that if there are rooms for doctors of different specialties and for occupational therapists, there should be rooms for Reiki practitioners and practitioners of energy in any way, of the flower essences, of the flower remedies. I think we are living in times when the boundaries are blurring, expanding, and are inclusively welcoming of each other. I know doctors who are also batch flower practitioners and taking batch flower remedies personally. I know tarot readers who are Jungian analysts, who are psychologists and psychiatrists. It's a fantastic time to be alive in this respect. The point is, if you want evidence of it, the evidence is observable. It is already happening.
So it's interesting the way, you've kind of connected magic with science and also with spirituality, wherein a tarot reader can be a Jungian specialist or a psychologist, and a doctor can be a Bach flower therapist. So it almost reminds me that before the effects of steam were discovered, if steam shook something that was kept over it, it would have been considered magic. Lightning was considered magic, or wrath of God. But as we started to understand what it is really, we took it out of the realm of magic and put it into the realm of science. So is it true what we consider magic today can become science tomorrow, as and when we start to uncover how it's happening?
I believe so.
Because I think law of attraction has kind of bridged the gap between manifestation magic and science. It's kind of bridging that. Would you agree to that?
I have a very constantly nuanced view of manifestation.
Okay.
And like everything else, it is evolving, And it is my responsibility, both karmically and professionally, to keep an open mind to the evolution of all things. Manifestation at the end of the day boils down to one's preparedness to receive. There is nothing more saddening or heartbreaking than receiving what you've been trying to manifest and then realize you cannot embrace it in your life because you're not prepared to receive it physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially, psychologically. Right?
Absolutely.
And this work of preparing to receive a manifestation is both scientific and spiritual. From a scientific perspective, one might do a lot of things to elevate the strength and stamina of the physical body. If one might go to their physician regularly, one might go to a nutritionist, one might go to a therapist for the health of the mind, one might go to an alternative practitioner, right? One might go to all of them regularly, right? And build up an arsenal of scientific and spiritual practitioners who are helping that person in this journey of well-being, right? So yes, in that respect, I do think magic can become the science of tomorrow, because both magic and science are about creating a reality at a desired frequency. The human body vibrates at a certain frequency when it is healthy. The human body vibrates at a lower frequency when it is unhealthy, and even lower frequency when it is nearing death. Right?
Right.
Scientific innovations are designed to improve the quality of life. Magic is also the spark of life that is meant to enrich, elevate, empower people. Again, it brings me back to this fact that they are both coming from the endless stream of consciousness as we know it. Both science and magic are coming from, I call it God, maybe someone else might call it the creator, someone else might call it source, but it is coming from God's infinite stream of consciousness. It was Einstein who turned the world upside down when he said that, it's not just matter, matter is just a very condensed form of energy. So you might say that a scientist who is helping the physical body of the person who's trying to manifest something is working on that premise that the body is the grossest form of vibration. Whereas a Reiki practitioner is working on the astral body, which is vibrating at a slightly different frequency. It's all hand in hand. It is the next step in human consciousness to fathom the possibility of a harmonious union between science and spirituality. Why hasn't it happened until now? And why is it kind of sort of happening? Why are there supporters and detractors? Because that is a reflection of the current state of human consciousness. The next stage will be one where we will be more effortlessly able to join the dots. So the best thing to do is to be magical, follow the path of least resistance, flow with the flow of consciousness, and do the best do the best that one can.
So, when you say follow the path of least resistance, what does that actually mean?
Thank you. I may have, in the passion of trying to share this message, forgotten to clarify that. For a lot of people, path of least resistance is evasiveness, escapism. Path of least resistance, matlab, don't go against the grain, don't make the effort. That's not what it means. It actually means application of effort, ability to do the work, which scientifically we call energy. Yeah, we learned in school, energy is the capacity to do work, which it is.
Precisely.
Right? So, following the path of least resistance is putting in the effort, putting in the work, but smartly. It's more about energy conservation than escapism and evasiveness. So, it's about, again, understanding one's physical, mental, intellectual, and spiritual faculties, trying to improve them. To do what? To learn to interiorize energy and use the strength of that interiorized energy to follow a certain path. Life is a balance between sharing energy outwardly with family, with friends, with the job, on a podcast, and conserving some of that energy for one's own inner work. It's about a sense of discrimination. At what point do we stop expending energies outwardly and focus more on inner reflection and turning that energy inwards, giving it a more powerful, spiritually potent form?
So, what would that look like, let's say, for a lay person, an everyday person who has to get up in the morning, go to the office, do their job, probably give time to their family at the end of the day, and also try to have as much social life as possible? What does path of least resistance mean for them?
Path of least resistance for them in terms of energy conservation and a sense of discrimination of that energy conservation is to pour all of their energy with concentration, with composure, into the activities that they know they have to do. They have to put in X amount of hours at work. They have to spend time with their families and children. Every now and then they have to touch base with their social circle. It is up to each individual's self-introspection and each individual's sense of their value systems, what makes them happy, what makes them comfortable, to know where to draw the line, right? There will be friends who will stay till 2 o'clock in the morning. There will be friends who would have left at 11 o'clock. There would be friends who left at 9 o'clock. Each individual is different, right? So you're conserving energy by saying, okay, this much time. Like, I'm going to use one example. You're out with your friends. I'm going to give that dinner or that lunch or that brunch this much time. Then I am going to withdraw from that situation, come back home, organize myself, have a bath, eat my food, whatever. Then I'm going to meditate, I'm going to go for a jog, I'm going to be doing some gardening, I'm going to be listening to some music. That is the point at which the energy has started to interiorize, because you are harnessing all the energy that has spread outside for everyone else and bringing it inwards for your own well-being. Now, whether you're doing that quietly and in quiet contemplation through meditation or your gardening activity, or whether you're just enjoying your shower, whether you're just sitting quietly and reading a book, you're starting to gather the threads of energy that have gone out, and you're just condensing them and bringing them inwards.
So basically, you're talking about drawing certain boundaries on how much energy you want to give outside, and how much you want to spend time with yourself, for yourself.
Yes.
And when you're spending time with yourself and for yourself, that does not include any other person. Right.
Because if there is unless that person is also sitting in quiet contemplation with you,
Yeah.
right? And why? What is the connection between this as the path of least resistance and becoming a better version of yourself? You simply realize that you're using less energy to do more, because you have sort of mastered and are continuously mastering this art of gathering scattered energies at the end of the day, at the end of the week, whatever is each individual, each lay person's personal time, and you're condensing that energy, and you're appreciating the potency of that energy for what it is. You're understanding what that energy is for you, according to your body, your mind, your lifestyle, and you build a personal relationship with your energy signature at the end of it, right?
Okay.
So that is how path of least resistance becomes energy conservation. You know exactly what quantum or what packet of energy to use and how much of it for what activity. So it's a sort of working smart instead of working hard.
Lovely. I think that was interesting, because that makes more sense on how to do this in your everyday practical life. You mentioned something about energy signature. What's that about?
I think it's a very poetic way to basically say one's individuated energy. Everyone's energy interacts with them and with the outside world differently, and our energy signature is the result of everything that we are doing or not doing. If I am going the entire week without sleeping for 8 hours, it's going to reflect in the energy that I bring to the room. Other people might also start feeling bogged down. Other people also might start feeling irritated or walking on eggshells because I haven't slept. I'm very hyper vigilant. I'm not grounded. So that it's just a poetic way of describing the quality of one's.
So, Sumiran, we talked about earth magic when we began. And I was wondering, since there are so many elements, there are 5 elements, Panch Mahabhut, so to speak. So, is there any other form of magic too, like fire magic or water magic?
All elements will have some form of magic associated with them. For me, meditation is a type of air and super ether realm of magic, because the effort in meditation is to sort of switch off sensory processing and strive towards spiritual communion or God communion. This is coming from my entire belief in spirituality as a space. I appreciate it's not something that would resonate with everyone, but I'm explaining it in the way that it makes sense to me, and it's, like I said, putting it out there for people to explore as a possibility. The other types of air magic actually have to do with reading weather patterns. Throughout the ages, there have always been people who are spiritually gifted. They can tell the difference between a regular gust of wind and winds of change that are bringing, positive or negative messages from the neighboring town or village.
Interesting.
Right? There are people who read clouds in the way that people read tea leaves and coffee beans. And I'm sure there are others. Fire magic, the one that I'm most familiar with is candle magic. And I'm not saying they are one and the same because I don't want to offend sensibilities, but trataka, or meditating by gazing at the flame, tratak, meditating by gazing at the flame of a candle,
Tratak
is a type of, well, to me, both meditation and magic. For me, working with candles is actually very powerful because it has all the elements there. The wax itself represents the earth. Fire is fire. Air is needed for the flame to burn, and water is in the moisture that is created from the melting of the wax. So it's a fuss-free, inexpensive, and if you're careful enough, a safe enough type of magic. You have to be very smart about handling fire. I think that comes intuitively to people. Everyone knows what they need to do to be careful. And water magic, to be very honest, I'm not very, very familiar with the many forms of water magic. But people use water as a means of scrying or divination. They're able to use water as a portal to channel messages from higher energy beings. And there are some forms of high magic or perhaps forbidden magic, whereby once upon a time people could use water as a conduit for remote viewing, where I can create a sort of wormhole through the water to see what Neetu is doing in her living room. People use mirrors for that as well. And I suppose people who are able to communicate with aquatic beings, that they are also specializing in a form of water magic. There are people who talk to dogs and animals. It's the same with aquatic beings.
So it's something like water bending that was shown in Avatar.
Sure. Yeah. So bending, for example, and levitation and moving things. This is, again, not manipulation of the element of nature. It is aligning the frequency of that element with one's own to a level where certain things can be done. We don't know what all water, air, fire is able to do unless we are prepared to sort of vibrate at that frequency. This is a very well-known example, and I'm sure many other people have quoted this before me. The microwave is not actually the contraption.
Yeah.
The microwave is the invisible wave.
Yes.
It's the same with radio. It's not the contraption. It's the radio wave. We don't see it, but we trust its ability to warm our coffee, to transmit our favorite song or a piece of important news.
True.
It is just a matter of time when we're able to tune our own apparatus, i.e. the human body, to pick up on all these wild and wonderful things that we are seeing in movies and TV shows and reading in books. But you see, it is coming from someone's thought, someone's imagination. The imagination is not a flimsy thing. It is a very fertile and sacred space where consciousness speaks to people and tells them basically that if you're able to imagine something, it is because it is possible. Once upon a time, Nikola Tesla might have been called crazy. Newton might have been called crazy. Anyone who said that the earth was not the center of the solar system was deemed crazy, a heretic, and a witch. So, I think we are well past all of that. We are now in a space where we need to start getting more and more comfortable with the idea that to be psychic, to be magical, to be a sorcerer or a sorceress, to be a so-called witch, to be spiritually gifted, is not the privilege of a few selected chosen ones. It is actually a function of human evolution. It is a function of certain aspects of the brain that are dormant being switched on. We've accepted that we are not using the human brain to full 100% capacity. Right? So ever so often there are people and groups of people who are training their bodies and their minds to such disciplined degrees that they are able to start at least figuring out where those switches are and using that marvelous brain function. One fine day, all of us will be like that. One fine day, I believe in this, that one fine day the human species would have evolved to such a level where there is no need to talk because everyone is communicating telepathically. There are people who are doing it already. So
Yeah.
it's already growing. It is already seeded.
Hmm.
Again, what is the proof? What is the proof? We need observable, discernible proof.
Hmm.
It's not just science that wants the proof, even magic wants the proof of something that has been done. Again, basically saying that the roots are the same. The proof is in the fact that it's actually happening. We can have a 2 hour, 4 hour podcast on whether consciousness, there's scientific proof for consciousness. We are the proof. The fact that we're able to have an articulate conversation and change what we have to say based on what the other person is saying is consciousness at play. Again, like magic, energy, consciousness, all the same. They are already there. They are irreducible facts or mathematical concepts, scientific concept. I'm not trying to be flippant. I'm not making fun. I'm not trying to be offensive. Please don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that it is simple. The universe is inexplicably complex. But I think no matter what the school of thought we believe in, we do agree that the complexity is increasingly revealing common roots across science, magic, spirituality.
So it's interesting. Today morning, I came across something that I was reading, and it was written: people will believe Wi-Fi. They'll believe the existence of Wi-Fi that works, and they'll believe microwaves, but they'll not believe in energy and vibrations. So yeah, that's an interesting point you make. Um, I'm going to come back to the point where you talked about witches. I know about witches, okay, but a lot of people don't. So let's first define. I want to ask you, who is a witch?
Anyone who offers themselves up, and when I say offers themselves up, I mean is open to embracing their mind, body, soul as a channel for divine intelligence, is a witch. It's not a gendered concept at all. There's a lot of discussion out there that a female is a witch and a male is a warlock. It's a gender fluid concept for me. And I say this because I would like people to know and to remember and to explore beyond this podcast that witches were people who had taken it upon themselves to channel divine intelligence, as I said, for the sake of the upliftment, the healing, the care of themselves, their family, and their village, their community, their society at large. Once upon a time it was, and even now it is something that is usually associated with feminines. That may have to do with the fact that receptivity, malleability, intuition is the premise of the feminine instinct, whereas structure, direction, and logic is the premise of the masculine instinct. It may be rooted in that. And it became something not to be proud of, to be a witch or to advertise yourself as a witch, because that's a conditioning that has come through the ages. Once upon a time, it did not suit the powers that were to have a whole bunch of women revealing, expressing certain gifts that even they were just understanding at that point in time, right? We did not want women becoming emancipated, liberated, powerful, articulate, and exercising these powers that were coming from somewhere that would make them stronger than the men in general, but maybe as strong or stronger than political groups, religious groups, and so on. I think it's the result of the conditioning. But if you actually look at the work that these witches were doing, even if you see their portrayals in pop culture, they are with their herbs and potions.
Yeah.
People go to the witches to heal things that doctors could not heal.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a last resort, but there was hope and faith in a miracle that could be facilitated by a witch. Witches were living far away from the rest of the group because, out of fear and ignorance, they were ostracized and they were told that they had to live away. But a lot of them used to live alone because they needed the solitude to commune with the elements of nature, to commune with that divine intelligence without interruption. And many of them would stay away from other humans because they were so self-aware that conversations with such a self-aware witch would be triggering.
True.
revealing imperfections in oneself. So it was more for the benefit of the people rather than, the benefit of the practicing witch themselves. Right? And in fact, again, if you see certain portrayals, the witches, the healers, the shamans, they were paid in kind for their services, not
Yeah.
always in coin.
Yeah.
Yes, sometimes, and they're always selfish practitioners, right? But really, they were paid in kind. Yeah, someone would look after their house, build them a house, give them a goat, give them a cow, give them clothes. Why? They were being freed from the pressures of, materialistic activities and the back and forth of, earning bread, earning for clothes on the back and roof on the head, so that they could focus all their attentions in being channels of divine intelligence for the sake of everyone else. Everyone was on board with this plan that, this person is channeling stuff for us that we can't do. And so we must free them completely, not have their mind distracted by other activities. So they were paid in kind so that they didn't have to worry about, a hole in the roof being thatched, food on the table, their clothes for winter, and so on. So there have been times when it was a very harmonious relationship with these practitioners. And of course, we know enough about when it was an antagonistic approach.
Yeah.
So why I'm constantly saying practitioners is because what I said in the beginning, they are people who have offered their mind, body, soul to be a channel. It is always the source, God, the divine intelligence, or the stream of consciousness that is doing the work.
Okay, that was pretty interesting. So, we are probably going to explore more about witches in another podcast episode very soon. But just one more question about witches. Can anyone become a witch?
Absolutely. There are some people who are born with the gift and they just know. And there are different types of witches. There are earth magic witches, fire magic witches, and air magic witches. And there are people who look at these born witches and they say, "I want to be one too." And like I was saying earlier in our discussion, they put their minds, bodies, and souls through such extreme levels of discipline that they're able to unlock the part of their intuition that allows that communication and inspiration to take place. It's the same with tarot.
Yeah.
A lot of people have asked me how I got into this. I said, I got into this in the same way that someone got into, marketing or an MBA or anything else. It's a language that describes the blueprint of the creation of universe. And the rules and the fundamental philosophies are the same. People's style may be different. In the same way that you have so many dermatologists, but every dermatologist has a different style, so every dermatologist has their set of clients because of their style.
Right.
It's the same with tarot readers. Anyone can become a tarot reader or an oracle reader if they're willing to put in the time and effort and concentration it takes to understand this blueprint of creation. So Reiki, for example, if I'm sitting in at my home in Delhi, or if I'm doing a home visit, I've come to do Reiki for you in your home, right? Fine, you have come to do Reiki in your home. But if I'm on a personal trip somewhere in the mountains, which is a true story, I'm on a personal trip in the mountains, I meet a bunch of people, they're local to the area, we're chit-chatting about God, spirituality, they're telling me stories of their village, the folklore of the area. If I practice Reiki on somebody who has a headache or a cough and they feel better, and it's the same with something like Reiki, Neetu. I may come to your house, I make a home visit, I do Reiki for you or your living space. But if I'm somewhere on a personal trip in the mountains, I'm in a remote location, and the locals are telling me stories, sort of bounding the. It's the same with Reiki, Neetu. I come to your house, and I do a home visit, I do some Reiki for you or your living space. It's easy to understand that.
True.
And people look at that as, oh, a Reiki practitioner is doing their job. Now, if I'm up there in the mountains on a personal trip, and I'm in a remote location, and the locals are telling me stories that are sort of blurring the boundary between reality and mythology, And then they ask me what I do, and I'm trying to explain to them what Reiki is. And they say, well, show us, right? And I do some Reiki for someone who has a headache or a child who has sprained their ankle, and they say, oh, we're feeling better. Well, that's me sort of being like a village priestess or a village witch, the local witch, the medicine woman.
Yeah.
Right? When we didn't have Reiki as a term or any other, like I said, it's nomenclature.
Yeah.
The people who came and gave this to the world, if they hadn't done it, someone else would have done it, because it is an expression of human consciousness to share this information. Right? So there you go. Then up there, where I'm trying to explain what Reiki is, it's as good as being the local medicine woman or the local shaman. You come to the city and you're a Reiki practitioner doing the work.
Right. So it's just about the setting that you're in that changes what you're called.
Yes.
Whether it's a shaman or a medicine woman or a Reiki practitioner.
Yes.
Lovely. That's interesting.
So if I was to tomorrow brand myself as a Reiki witch, is that going to excite people's curiosity? Absolutely. Why are people even curious at all? Why are people even willing to have a conversation on it? It's because it's that aspect of human consciousness that is now willing and able to fathom the possibility that witches are not evil, manipulative, ugly people, that they are actually simply healers. Because we're way past that type of social conditioning where you had to brand a woman as something devilish and negative to bring her up. I mean, there's plenty scope for improvement. Plenty scope for improvement.
Yeah.
And it's not just about women, it's other communities as well. And again, that's probably a different podcast.
That brings me to a point. If somebody wants to learn to be a witch, or let's say if somebody wants to learn magic, earth magic, water magic, or become an open conduit for universal forces to flow through them, what is the journey for them? What does the journey for them look like?
The journey is very multifaceted, confusing at times, definitely tests commitment, and a lot is understood in retrospect. So one way to try to simplify that process is to at the outset do some sort of self-introspection exercise, journaling if you will, to understand what is a natural area of interest. Where does one feel like this is my natural sanctuary? The earthy people are more likely to go towards earth magic, for example. And to be very honest with one's interests. Then it's about finding teachers, mentors, and gurus. I think that is very important. Coupled with proper study. So that is where the teachers, gurus, and mentors are very useful, because they can point you in the direction of authentic sources, seminal works in a particular field. I'm not saying books are extremely important. I'm just saying that wisdom has been transmitted through the ages and recorded with a lot of effort, and probably having overcome a lot of obstacles and difficulties. So if those texts are surviving, and if they are available, or if they've been translated into a language that we can understand, we should respect them and use them, and become conduits to share that written or recorded knowledge. So a teacher, mentor, guru, some study material, and consistency with personal practice is the game changer. You can have the best teachers and the best material to work with, and you could be blessed with the gift. But if you're not going to practice it, if you're not going to be practical about your spirituality, as you have so beautifully written here, it's not going to come alive. Because we've been talking about intention and alignment of intention. That's talking about free will. God has given us free will to do something, or the source or the creator has given us free will to do something with. If we do not apply our free will in the direction of exploring, grounding, expanding, and perfecting what we have realized is our particular witch skill, then it's lost to the ages. Like so much probably has been. So it's a very simple, someone listening to this might say, oh, that's very simple. But it's deceptively simple. It's all down to the depth of detail you're willing to dive into and the amount of effort you're able to make on a daily basis.
True. That's so true. In fact, you know, we say it is very simple. It gets complicated, of course, out there in the world. But if you keep bringing it back to source, it is actually very simple. It's as simple as breathing. But sometimes breathing is also something that needs to be learned
Yes, or relearned.
or
Exactly.
relearned.
Exactly.
Precisely.
I think I would just like to reiterate the importance of being a practitioner and a facilitator of knowledge and wisdom and ability and assistance. Whether you're a scientific practitioner or a spiritual practitioner, a witch, a mage, or a sorceress, uh, it's about being a channel. We are a fragment of the universe. We are cut from the same cloth as the divine consciousness. Science would call it a holographic version of the universe, right? And if we want to have a fulfilling experience as a magician, as a scientist, as a witch, we have to constantly remember that this whole thing is bigger than us. We are not bigger than it. I have found that it leads one to delusion and confusion and, a false sense of power and a false sense of expertise over one's craft and one's gift. Always remember that this is bigger than us.
So, reiterating the fact that it's always bigger than us, and we are but a very small part, and yet not insignificant part of this huge cosmos, this huge universe, and this existence. So, thank you so much, Sumiran.
Thank you.
For doing this, and thank you for sharing this wisdom with us.
It's my humble honor and pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to think out loud instead of constantly thinking in my head and having conversations with myself on this. And I hope that everyone who's listening, everyone who's watching, has received something that they might want to explore further, have received something that they'd like to think about.
Absolutely.
And it goes without saying that if anyone wants to reach out, if anyone wants to know more, I'm happy to come back here and have an extended discussion with you
and
everyone.
And we are going to do that. We are going to talk more about witches and mages over the ages and also in today's world.
Yes.
And yes, that's going to happen soon. So thank you so much, Sumiran, for doing this.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So this was another episode of the podcast of Design Kaleidoscope. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we enjoyed having this conversation. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And we'll keep bringing you more such conversations which don't just touch the surface, but actually take you deeper, dive deeper into everything that's about spirituality. And that's not just about spirituality, that's somewhere, some part of our life. It's all about practical spirituality, how we can bring that aspect into our everyday life. And I'll see you very soon. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like us and share and subscribe. Thank you. Take care. Bye for now.